Yes, I was actually sleepy at that time. I was like, come on.
It's not easy. You can't.
You feel sleepy.
You can control your pitch, your smile. You can't control your eyes.
Sometimes. No,
Eyes
it's
I
difficult.
can't.
It's
I
difficult.
really-
It's difficult.
It's funny.
Okay.
What we start now?
Yeah, shall we? Yeah.
She's okay.
我一会儿那个图片的时候，我要给您手势吗？
We can.
我们这做的都可以哈。
照片那个，我不是发在群里的那个。
所以就是您给我这儿没有用，图片是在那边切，所以到时候还得有个导播在后面。
啊，要到那边，那怎么办？
那个图片我可以让它就是不切合到主持人的切口，让它图片上一下，你看这样子在哪？然后等到正式的时候，我们再有一个人在。对，你必须在刚好有个人切，因为图片是在上面，在那边15楼。
about things, hobbies, and
七、
哎呀妈呀，
we started.
五、
倒数个手机。
四、三、二、一，开始。
Hello and welcome to Chatbox. We are live from Beijing. I'm Tuyun. Together with us today, Ms. Zoon Ahmed Khan, journalist from Pakistan and also research fellow at the Belt and Road Strategy Institute at Tsinghua University. Welcome, Zoon.
Thank you.
And Mr. Xu Tingduo, our very own commentator, and as well as senior fellow with the Beijing-based think tank, Pengol Institution. Thank you for joining us,
Thank you,
Tingduo.
Tuyun.
Right. First of all, I want to congratulate both of you, and me myself as well, on surviving year 2020.
Yes.
An unusual year, to say the least, witnessing so many extraordinary events,
Very
like
true.
you name it, the assassinations of Iran's high-ranking military official and their top nuclear scientist,
yeah.
right? And the coronavirus sweeping across this whole world, and the deadly bushfire in Australia. And the riots in the United States, to name a few. So upon the conclusion of the year 2020, we did a series of mini surveys on Twitter and reviewing the past year and having a preview of the coming year. So let's begin with turning back the clock a little bit. First of all, we have this poll on which word defines year 2020. So first we'll take a look at the result of the mini poll, and then each of us share with our own defining word.
Okay.
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 So
Yeah.
the result is we've got several words: challenging, unreal, sad, and obviously challenging is the word, defining word chosen by our followers on Twitter as the defining word for year 2020. Qingduo, would you, how do you interpret that word?
I agree with challenging. I would say that's the best word probably to describe 2020. Of course, you use different words like tumultuous, let's say surreal, it's unprecedented. Last time around, that's 100 years
It's
ago.
all in our
so-called
followers'
Spanish flu.
answers, right?
I think that's for a lot of people, full of uncertainty. But I think challenging probably is a proper word to describe. I mean, almost for the, I would say, entire population on this planet. We were faced, or we are still facing this virus, especially at the beginning. Nobody knew what kind of virus it is and how it transmits from one person to another and how to deal with that situation. It's a complete, I would say, it's unpredictable, uncertain, and full of, I would say, gravity because we have no idea how to deal with that. But then later on, we get to know more and more about the virus, but still it's challenging. If you look at today, lockdowns, and then people feel somehow they want to go out.
Right.
Some people say, oh, no mask for me, I want freedom, etc. So it's all kinds of challenges over there.
Yeah.
Right, but Zoom is challenging just too normal or
I
ordinary word.
agree with what both of you said, and I think even the comments under the poll makes sense. People have faced something unprecedented, something extraordinary as well. But the word I chose to use for this is also challenging, but I would say it's a year about resilience, because in this challenge, you see that people are still living their lives mostly. They have adapted to new circumstances that were completely unexpected.
Right.
So many people have been in lockdowns, partial or complete lockdowns. We've seen, many of us have seen suffering and death in our own families, no matter where we are in the world. But at the same time, people are still striving for something better. People still seem to be looking forward to something better. You see on social media, you see young people creating fun and funny content. You see older people, being able to say, let's look forward to a better 2021.
Right.
And I think this is where the challenge really translated into resilience. It shows that as humanity, as people, we are capable of enduring a lot more than we expect. And also, I think we saw, like you mentioned, some very negative, morbid developments, like the assassinations and the fire. But we also saw some positive developments where we see that some countries are moving away from, let's say, very, myopic policies, but looking for, they realize the betterment for their people. Politics aside, let's try to strive for policies that are going to improve people's lives. So I think, resilience and maybe also a wake-up call.
Right.
We are one humanity. We're suffering the same virus. So many other things we're suffering together. So. Yeah.
As we are all like journalists, sometimes I just feel a little bit tired of politics, especially last year, and with so many things happening. And let's take a look at this reply or some suggestion from our followers.
Yeah.
They've got this tumultuous, as you mentioned, Qingduo, to define this year.
It is, in a sense, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right, and horrendous.
Horrendous is the
Horrendous.
no, for some people it really it's horrible what they're facing. A fourth-year
mess.
lockdown in so many places. Yeah.
Right. As for me, I think I would choose the word historic. I know every year has its defining moments, but not every year or all years can leave this footprint on the trail of history so deep as year 2020.
Yeah.
Right. So
it's like a different aspects of the same event.
Right.
The pandemic, mostly it's the pandemic. The theme of the year 2020, of course, part of the 2021, at least half of 2021 will continue to be, unfortunately, the pandemic, the COVID. People, if you look at the other aspects, as you mentioned, resilience, for example, people try their best to continue to work either at home or from afar, right? Through this network. Thank you to the network, social media, Zoom and Tencent, Ding, etc. You do like a new lifestyle, we call it COVID lifestyle, right? You stay at home, but you continue to work. You continue to consume. The market, the economy continue to run probably not as expected, as well as expected. In particular, the service industry, it's harder to travel. Some people would broke the lockdown and continue to travel, but mostly people will follow the order and stay at home most of the time. In some parts of the world, like in China, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, South Korea, I think they have done a better job. So basically people have their life back. You go to the movie with your friends, with the family members, continue to enjoy as much as possible.
But still continue to follow SOPs, and I think this is what people outside of China or outside of these countries, if they think, we are doing nothing to make sure the virus doesn't spread. Actually, everything, we've internalized these things, to wear a mask, temperature checks, all of that. So I think even the fact that people are able to live towards more normalcy comes with immense discipline that we need to be able to share with the world as well.
Yeah, that's also the year probably for reflection, to reviewing what we believe in, what we need to do in a situation like this. Discipline is a good word, actually. We need discipline. We need, of course, proper policies from the government, but at the same time, we do need the coordination and cooperation from the public, right? That's probably, discipline or self-discipline. It's about the behavior and how we can cut off the spread of the virus, and then as part of the community or the country, they can somehow contain, prevent the spread of the virus, so you can achieve a better situation. Otherwise, unfortunately, you would do it again. It's quite challenging.
So personally speaking, have both of you done any retrospection or yourself?
Well, it's a good question.
You're just too busy to reporting all the major events, I think.
I can say one small thing from my perspective, that as someone who's still an expat, I've been living in China and Beijing for 5.5 years. But for me, I'm still someone who's trying to increasingly understand the Chinese society, China as a country, people, culture. And for that reason, COVID-19 was an experience I'm immensely grateful for what I observed, because I saw how in this kind of a situation, in the beginning, in March, in February, we didn't know what the virus was. It was something uncertain. People were worried. I mean, we didn't know how potent it was, how contagious it was. But you see, but I saw that how a country, how the government came with timely policies to save lives above everything else, and how the people, the society, their attitude was. My colleagues, people I knew, friends, they were telling me, oh, we don't go outside because we don't want to infect other people. And this is what kept everyone going, that we are in this together. So it was a very eye-opening experience for me. And I think for many other people who are still, you know, we are part of the Chinese society, but still understanding it better. I think the way China adapted itself and dealt with a calamity like this, it was no short of one, was simply extraordinary. I think it shows what a country is capable of.
Right, you got a better observation than us, who are Chinese and are all used to all of these.
Maybe, yeah, right? Maybe for you it's just normal. For me, it's extraordinary.
Right. I think, of course, because we live in Beijing, so most of the people would have a similar experience, right? Yeah. For me, you know, actually that's, I think, before the New Year holiday, the Chinese New Year, the Spring Festival, you know, when we heard of this new virus, unknown virus in Wuhan, you know, my first response is like, oh, because I experienced the SARS, that's some years ago, when I was in Beijing, still working, and I had this sense like, okay, we need to do something we need to do. That is, you know, usually we go home to meet parents and have a family reunion. So I decided that no, not this year, in case, you know, if I bring the virus to my parents, I don't want to infect them, you know, so let's stay separately, but safe, So that's my decision from family, basically. And also, you know, from in the office, I would tell my younger colleague, you know what, we don't know this virus, but what we can do is like, you know, to take some responsibility. And I think that helps as a country. You know, when the government issues some policies, it's easier for the people. People say, yeah, we need to do something. Let's basically, you know, when the policy are made public, you know, people don't feel the pressure. People didn't feel the pressure, oh, I was forced to do something. No, nobody said that, basically.
Yeah, right, discipline,
it was very, the attitude was very different from what I think, you know, people, for me as someone covering COVID for Pakistan and other countries, I really tried to explain this, what you just said, like for every person, they have a sense of duty and rights together. And this was a remarkable way to observe, like how normal people are playing their part.
Because, you know, it's requires contribution from everybody, participation, I would say, from everybody. If there are people who say they don't follow the rule and they would go to crowded places because they themselves, of course, will be in danger. But also, what if you are carrying the virus, you will infect somebody else? So in that sense, basically, everybody needs to behave ourselves, and then the whole situation will change quickly. That's, I mean, the reality proves that's right?
Hey, I think discipline and the sense of responsibility make China stand out, if you will, in this unprecedented crisis. And I think maybe that's a lesson we can draw, you know, from this past year.
Yeah, I do, however, think that, you know, in some cases, like in the UK, I have family there, and they said, you know, we really admire what the Chinese government did, because for them, they think, you know, their government didn't decide in a timely way. So, yes, I mean, maybe people can learn from the discipline, but also I think now with the second emergence of cases, second wave in many countries, this can be a good roadmap for decision makers as well, how to create that spirit, like to work together as a state and society to
I think we can understand their way of thinking, because they prefer a small government, right? But while in China, we got a big government who's responsible for a lot of things, and because people just tend to give up or just handing or submit part of their responsibility to or their
agency,
what do you call it? To the government, and so that you can do whatever we need to do or tell us what to do at time of emergency.
I think there's probably the word is like the trust. Obviously, the trust in the government.
That's a very key word.
Yeah, the Chinese people in general, the public, I would say they have strong trust in the government, in particular the central government. If the policies are mapped out by the central government, people would say, yeah, largely people will cooperate and follow that. Even sometimes you disagree with some parts of that policy. You complain a little bit, but still you follow, and then you try to, clarify what we should do, under such policies, under such a situation. And people would expect the government to respond quickly. If there's emergency situation, people all look up to Beijing.
Right.
Like, okay, what's your response? What we should do? So
tell us what to do.
Yeah. It's like a part of the culture mostly.
Yeah, you lack some individuality, or to some extent individualism.
But it's collectivism.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's holistic.
Sometimes it's more powerful than just individualism.
I think it makes more sense. It's also like Chinese medicine. I mean, if I look at anything Chinese medicine also, it's not about just like targeting
TCM,
the headache.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
TCM.
TCM.
Even our traditional medicine is like that. It looks at the whole body as one.
Holistic approach,
and
we
one
call it,
organ, one whatever part of your body is not disconnected.
Right.
And therefore one individual in a similar way is not disconnected.
That's a whole system.
Yeah.
Right.
And this is where I think if one takeaway that many people who are open-minded in Western countries, and they say, okay, maybe we took our notion of freedom far, like individual freedom must be compatible with the welfare of the society at large. Yeah. So this is, I think, I guess in this way, 2020 is also a year that people are contemplating many systems can be good. Let's see which system delivers in which situation. And we can all be open to adapting our systems as countries in situations where we need to.
I agree with you there, totally. Every system has its advantages. It's just you have to find the balance point.
For yourself.
Right.
For your society.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings us to the second poll. Which news event do you expect to be the most influential in shaping the world in the years to come, Qingduo?
Well, people would say pandemic, but actually I disagree a little bit.
Really?
I think, like if you look back, for example, people call it Spanish flu, actually it's discriminatory. Sorry, I use the phrase here. If you look at history, the flu didn't change anything basically. And a lot of history books, textbooks, you didn't read it. They didn't even mention about this.
We just
flu
talk
at
about
all.
it now.
Yeah, we're talking about now. Yes, it affects
First
every
World
aspect
War.
of life. But when they come to the international situation, out is actually still China-U.S. relationship. For me, that will somehow shape the 2021, the new year. We're talking about the new year, right?
Can I be?
Yeah.
China-US, you think? Okay.
Sure. In that sense, because these two countries are the two largest economy, and they have their basically interests and in every corner of the world. So if they choose to cooperate with each other, and every other countries will feel at ease to do business with both China and the U.S. And the whole world will benefit from that, and peace and the stability will be ensured. Otherwise, we have a new government upcoming in Washington, right? If there's a tension between China and the U.S., Beijing and Washington, and then countries in between would feel pressured to take sides or somehow pressure, mostly from Washington, to be fair, to do something against even their own interests. In that sense, I would say the rest of the world will feel unease, will feel like challenged, will feel kind of difficult to handle the relationship, with China, with the U.S., or conduct their own foreign policies or their economic policies. So I would say that relationship between Beijing and Washington will shape the whole world in a sense in 2021. Yes, pandemic will continue for the whole year, I would say. For some countries, probably in the middle of this year, things could come down. Most of the people will get immunized. It's easier to deal with the pandemic. But also remember, pandemic is just temporary, the effects. Everybody's life affected one way or another. But then when it comes to the end, then it ends.
But I would challenge you there a little bit. the COVID-19 already changed the path of how this Sino-US relations will go.
It's an accelerator.
Right.
Yes, it
2028
accelerates.
now.
Yeah, 2021. It did not change the direction of China-US relationship. It accelerates the development of this relationship. You can see, even before the COVID, there's, let me use the word hostility, from Washington toward Beijing, pressure from Washington toward Beijing. But with the COVID-19, you see the intensification of this pressure, of this hostility toward China. Toward like Communist Party of China, from Pompeo, like every day. It's a daily practice attacking, people.
It's entertaining.
So it is
too much.
It is accelerating the development of the international situation. It's not changing really fundamentally. It's the whole world is becoming faster with a faster pace to develop.
I have an agreement, but a little. So I think COVID-19, like you said, it is temporary. Now we think it's everything maybe also because currently many countries are facing the second phase, the second wave, and it's the only thing that concerns them. But I do feel it has a long-term impact in changing the way countries make decisions. For example, RCEP or the China-EU.
We didn't expect that to
It
come.
wouldn't have happened if these countries didn't realize that they just need to choose policies that are better for their people. Economy is the first thing, and like politics or ideological, whatever support they should have had for the US, that is secondary to the fact that their people need to have better lives. So I think, yes, for sure, this direction was inevitable. With time, we do see China is rising, and the US, since I think 2001, things have taken a turn. The policies have become too aggressive in certain parts of the world. So we do see a gradual decline of authority, of moral authority or global authority of the United States. But for me, what's most significant is China, not China-US. US is one part of the China equation. It's China emerging as a leader in the world, China initiating multilateralism, China forging new alliances, pragmatic alliances with countries that otherwise would always consult the US before making any decision. And we see a shift towards more focus on economy rather than ideology. Because in a situation like COVID-19, we realize all that matters is the prosperity of people's lives in the long term. What do people live for? They live to have a better life for their children, for their families, and for health. There's nothing matters if you don't have health. COVID-19, we realize, everyone, like our health is at stake. So even in normal circumstances, people would realize that their health is very important. You can't earn, you can't experience life without good health. So when your whole globe is going through a global health crisis, I think people just gravitate towards more pragmatism. So yeah, let's hope that this accelerator can push more countries towards more sensible policies. Yeah.
All right, here's a reminder. You are with us at Chat Box. We are live streaming from Beijing. And now let's move on from year 2020 to the new year, obviously. We are now in the new year, after all. So what would be the issue, what will concern you most in 2021? First, we take a look at answers from our followers. Yvonne Kaur from Malaysia says it's job security. And she's worried about whether the banks would approve housing loans to the category of employees which are had to choose to work from home or to be freelancers. So that's concerning issue for her. And Edwin Chiari from Nairobi, Kenya, he's worried about the depressing Kenyan economy. And Jiba Mochia from Nigeria as well, Nigeria, she's also concerned about job security. But the winner of our poll is still COVID-19.
Do you agree?
Yes, from people's daily lives point of view, COVID-19, because the COVID is affecting the economy, obviously. The economy is affecting everybody.
Right.
Daily lives. We were talking about the lives and livelihood. So COVID-19 is affecting both sides.
Right.
You know, people like in the US, you know, we still have the daily, you know, toll of people basically succumbing to COVID-19. That's staggering. You know, if you look at the number, it's a sad story over there. And then livelihood, of course, because of the COVID-19, the economy, most of the countries obviously will, you know, have been battered by COVID-19. Some of the you know, smaller and medium companies, firms have to probably close, and then you have people out of jobs. You know, you have your income affected, and then it's a tough and real challenge for a lot of people. Even in Britain, the United States, the UK. You know, UK is one of the rich countries, but you know, there's a story that's really shocking. UNICEF is working in the UK to feed the hungry children in that country.
Imagine.
It's unbelievable. Remember, UNICEF usually is present in the part of the war zones, you know, to help feed the children, probably homeless, even parents probably window somewhere.
Refugees.
Or in the, you know, refugee camps, you know, in those places. But now Britain. Think about Britain. If Britain is doing this, you know, what about other developing countries, or least developed countries in other parts of the world? Can you imagine? Yeah.
Do you think, in a way, I mean, I agree with with COVID-19 as well, but I want to ask both of you, do you think, in a way, COVID-19 serves as an equalizer? Not that it has made people economically more equal, but it has made the idea of suffering relatable. I think in that sense, it could be an equalizer that, you know, countries, even if they're rich countries, you can face such a crisis and feel what hunger, poverty, sheer unemployment is like. And I think maybe it can increase empathy.
In the sense,
future.
that's right. But in another sense, it's actually widening the gap between rich and poor. You know, if you look at, for example, the United States, you know, the stock market, because most of the stock market, 80% of them are owned by the 20% of the rich people, the population, rich people, and then mostly will be by the 1% of the rich people over there. So for the general public, you know, you don't own the stock market. You know, stock market for the U.S. government, Trump, for example, he feels so proud of that because it's surging basically, despite the pandemic. So you know, in that sense, you see. Like Amazon, big tech companies, and also the rich people in general, they are not really getting worse during this pandemic. They are getting actually better off. But for the 80% of the people,
they're
it's getting worse.
off. And they say that the relief package, like these billions of dollars of relief package, actually, it's only, most of it is for the rich, supposedly, and not so much going to, and maybe this is also a test for these governments. What legitimacy can they have if they are not able to serve the interests of majority of their people? On the other hand, if you look at China, I think one thing happened for sure, that lives, just saving a single life was worth so much effort. And that increases the confidence and trust people have for their government. So maybe this can be a good point for some governments to
it's basically, if you look at you know, government's official response to the pandemic, there are two different models, I would say. One is like you prioritize saving lives, and then you end up saving economies also. Another is like you prioritize saving economy. Unfortunately, you save neither. Lives will be lost, and the economy basically is difficult to recover. So that's, I think most people agree with that, you know, different models produce different results. I would say the widening gap, or I would say the effects on the poorer people, on the lower income people, basically that's true in every country, not only in the US, but also in other countries, including China. You know, people doing small business, you know, if your shop somehow were closed, and you receive some help, assistance from the government, but usually that's not really enough, right?
It's a stipend.
Stipend is still very challenging. The good thing is, like in China, you know, you have this basically full economic recovery. You can try other opportunities. You know, as long as the economy is growing and there are opportunities, you try new opportunities. You have a new, probably different lifestyle, and still you can make ends meet, I guess.
And I think this COVID-19 also offers an opportunity to people around the world to see clearly that there are poverty problems actually inside those developed countries, especially, you know, I'm just going to name one country, the United States. Here, one of our followers posted this video titled Capitalism there, and people just sleep on the streets overnight.
Homeless people.
Homelessness is a big problem in many states in the U.S. And yeah, there needs to be targeted.
Homeless, and it's getting worse because of the COVID, the pandemic. You see, I mean, when we talk about equality or inequality, you see for the colored people, for example, if you follow the U.S. media, even they would say it's unequal in a sense because if you check the number of the people succumbing to the COVID-19, high percentage coming from the colored
marginalized
it's marginalized, and also if you have a job, you have to go outside. You can't afford to stay inside, to stay at home, and then you have more risks. And then if you don't go there, you have the risk of losing the job, right?
Can we also talk a bit about the emotional and psychological toll? Because I know that in many parts of the world, like suicide rates have increased so much. My own friend, she's in the UK, and she saw someone trying to commit suicide on the railway track, and she stopped him. And this was such a shaking moment for her that she saved a life, supposedly. Who knows what he did later on, but many such cases are coming up. And what do you think can be a good way to keep people in a healthy mindset? I think personally, like when I was in Beijing for the first 2 months, even my family in Pakistan was worried. I was alone in a city where at least I don't have other family, So being alone, isolated for that many weeks, but I was always in touch with friends, with colleagues who were going through the same. So we kept each other there somehow. But how can people in other countries who see indefinite lockdown, indefinite suffering, how can they feel
It's
better?
very challenging, obviously.
Right.
What
That's
can be
what
done
we
for that?
experienced here in China, right? I remember vividly during that period, I myself turned a little bit, moody, and it's just asking all the day, when will it approach its end? But now it seems it's never ending.
Now it's
even in the new year, right?
Well, I think, of course, you would try to give people the hope, right? I think with the new year, the good things about the pandemic is we do have the vaccines available and being put into use. In the many countries, they introduce a vaccine program. It takes some time, but at least we know it's going to end, right?
The vaccines are already rolling out.
Unlike last year, 2020, basically, most of the time, you didn't have a clue when the vaccine will be available or whether it will be effective, whether it will be safe, when it's your turn to take the vaccine, etc. So it is. That's why challenging is the word. That's the proper word.
Right, very
because it's challenging in different aspects, as you mentioned about the psychological need. Sometimes
maybe the coverage needs to be better. Sometimes I think media outlets just really. Maybe they need to also give people hope. I think there should be a sense of responsibility attached with media, influencers, government. When they talk, they should talk with a sense of responsibility and strength, hope, give people hope. I think that's something that needs to be done. But yes, it's better than it was yesterday.
Let's hope. And which economy, Qingzhou, your favorite topic? You've already talked a lot about the economy already. Which economy do you expect to grow the fastest in the new year?
I think probably some of them actually are based in Asia, like the Chinese economy, Vietnamese economy. I think Southeast Asian countries, Korean economy, Japan even, I would say. India, Pakistan, if we can recover quickly from the pandemic. In general, we're doing a good job over there. U.S. economy, I would expect the U.S. economy will bounce back rather soon, probably at the middle of next half year, the next half of this year, of 2021. Yeah, that's the hope, and I think people increasingly, because the U.S. is actually the second country after the UK, right, into starting the vaccination process. So if they do it right, I mean.
Yeah, that's a very important precondition.
Yes, sorry, precondition for the Biden administration if they do it right, and then hopefully in the middle of the year. So most of the people will be vaccinated, and then the economy will come back. U.S. is one of the strongest economy. China is another very strong economy. For China, many predictions, 9%. I think for IMF, it's like 8.2%. But now the latest prediction is 9% economic growth for 2021. So China obviously will be among the fast-growing economy for 2021. With other countries too. I think Vietnamese economy is a strong one too, fast growth. Bangladesh could be, very strong too. Depends on the situation for India and Pakistan, we will see. But probably European economy, in particular UK, FT, they did a survey. I think they asked 90 economists to have a prediction about UK. They say UK won't recover probably until 2020 sometime.
I guess the trajectory of going down a little bit first and then start taking off.
But mostly it's because of the pandemic. It's really about how you deal with the situation.
Brexit deal.
Like for the UK, they are the first country to start the vaccination. But there are a lot of question marks. People are expressing concern of some of the practice. They are imposing the third lockdown almost nationwide, half of the nation, and also they are using this vaccine, different vaccine. They are encouraging like a mixed use of different vaccines. I think they just
need something as well, some hope like in the system, just to try whatever it takes to make it better, because people over there are really giving up. I mean, it's a hard thing to go through a third lockdown to a fourth lockdown.
It is.
So
psychologically even. For a lot of people, people would say, it's enough. I can't take it anymore. And other European countries like France, the latest news is like it's really slow. I think for 1 week or it's only hundreds of people getting vaccinated. It's supposed to be much larger number, but it's slow. Germany, people are complaining it's too slow. So actually inside the European Union, there's sort of like a blaming game, who should be held accountable for this slow vaccination program over there.
Maybe it's better just to observe it as well in the process.
But I think it's mostly because it's the beginning, so there are some challenges.
Distributing it.
Yeah, you need some time probably to smooth it out.
And Zun, apart from China, which other economy do you think is worth watching in the new year?
I think I agree with you're the expert on this, honestly, because it's China, but also East Asian economies have done fairly well when it came to handling the virus, and that has a lot to do with what we can predict for their economies. And I think the RCEP, for example, is one development that shows these countries are keen to invest in economies together. I would talk about the concept of dual development that China has. I mean, all countries realize that their economic progress has a lot to do with how much they can cooperate, how effectively they can cooperate with other countries. So that's where East Asia in general, largely China, can be observed as the ones faring really well. And I would say, yes, about the US, maybe it's just a matter of time. Once they're able to roll out the vaccine and it's effective, they should be able to bounce back as well. So major economies seem to be set, capable of dealing with the impact of the virus. Maybe it would take a year, 2 years, let's see. The EU especially, for example, how well they can vaccinate their people, and also they also have this idea how overall they have an economic package, a relief package for people, the countries that are members, how they can collectively deal with the crisis. So their attitude is also pretty cooperative in this regard.
Yeah, personally speaking, my interest is on the EU, which just signed a comprehensive agreement, it's the
on
investment deal, with China, and I think with their ability of handling crises, they should have this potential to have a relatively big growth in the new year. And I very much to look forward to, you know, a result that can counter this saying of the EU is the loser in this deal?
No, actually, no. You know, this problem misinformed. I know there's a lot of responses, you know, comments on this CAI, China-EU, this investment deal. In particular, from people focused from Washington, they're freaking out like, oh, China is cooperating with the EU. EU is not listening to Washington anymore.
You think it's
like
totally
this.
jealous, or?
They're looking at the issue from different angle. For folks in Washington, they would say they look at the issue from geopolitical sense, from competition, strategic competition with China.
Right.
But for EU, it's mostly about the investment and trade.
Their
right?
priorities.
Investment priority is different.
Yeah.
For them, they are pragmatic. And remember, many people would actually wrongly say China is rushing to finish this deal. But if you check the facts, actually, back in 2019, the EU side was urging China to finish this deal as soon as possible, not the Chinese side. So I think, unfortunately, in particular in the social media, many people are talking, but very few are checking the facts, checking the reality, what really happened, what's it about even. It's about opening further of the Chinese market. And China also has a need to open up further its economy to investors from different part of the world, because China believes in it's good for China, it's good for the investors from other countries. It's it's a win-win. Basically, everybody benefits from this cooperation. What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? And why don't we question this mentality? I was reading I just saw a tweet before about how, the EU did this, even though we all have together reached a consensus to counter China. Why? I mean, why? Who reached the consensus? Like Washington, but then the Trump administration reached the phase 1 of the trade agreement with China as well. Did they consult the EU?
No.
I think the two things to look at here. Number one, to question the premise, the basis, and who are we benefiting by confronting or curtailing China. And the other is, why is there a double standard? I mean, if the United States, let's say, did have this idea, this ideological war, then they should also consult their partners before embarking on any kind of cooperation with China, and vice versa. So it's a bit incompatible with what the world needs right now. And when you look at people, like they need UNICEF to come in to feed their children, are they going to care about the sentiments of the Biden administration, or are they going to care about feeding the children, providing jobs? And this is where I think like the previous and this question are sort of connected, because we see more regions in the world acting in a way that's pragmatic. And
that's a good word. I think basically, if you look at the world, for some people, they always look at strategic competition with China, like confront China. But the priority right now is exactly handling of pandemic and then economic recovery for every country, because it's about the livelihood for your own people. It's not about stopping the rise of another country or stopping development of another country.
I think they confuse the priority there. And let's narrow down our focus a little bit to just China. And what interests you most about China as we head into the new year? We got countryside development, green development, CPC's 100th founding anniversary, and very interestingly, this follower, M.R. Shaukat from Pakistan, he said, I have read in 100 years, China has achieved most goals that were established in 1921. It's remarkable and excellent. I love CPC, world's biggest political party, which is working for people's development. Future, he said, future belongs to China. Chinese dream will come true. Wow, I was actually amazed by this reply.
They really feel like this, like people in Pakistan, many developing countries, they have faced also in the past 20 years the worst manifestation of imperialism. And when they see a country that followed its own path, created its own path, did not become subservient to another country and respectfully chased its dreams and achieved them. I think it's a really big encouragement for developing countries that choose that want to be respected on an equal footing. So people in Pakistan, people in many developing countries really look up to what China has achieved in terms of poverty alleviation, in terms of improving remarkably the quality of the people's lives, and also the way China is with other countries. So for me, I don't know what Shuchindo, your answer would be, but for me it's actually the Belt and Road. I don't think it's away from China's domestic economic goals, development goals. It's deeply connected, because it's a way that China reaching out to the world is going to have a positive impact domestically and regionally and globally. So yeah, I think people look forward to understanding better how China does it, learning from China as well, and I think that sentiment is mutual. Yeah.
Qingduo, your say?
I was probably several aspects. It's not like a single answer over there. And I do agree with Pakistan, the Pakistani follower about the CPC. I think obviously it's a big event for 2021. If you are interested in knowing more about the CPC, which was, I would say, a lot of misunderstanding in the Western media over there negatively. In 1921, when it was created, it's one of the smallest party. I think it's like less than 20 people over there for their first meeting.
Right.
Young people, the youngest one is being 17 actually. They have this ambition, say we need to save our country. We need to do whatever we need to do to save our country, because we cannot continue like this anymore. You can see they have this really long-term goal, this basically like a revitalization of the Chinese nation. So that's why even today we're talking about that. And there's a long-term goal, and they follow through. Of course, they are not mistake-free for any political party. You make mistakes, and then you come back to the right track, right? And you set a long-term goal, you implement, you follow step by step. I think in that side, in that sense, the CPC has done a wonderful job over there. So that's really something. And I agree with you, like Belt and Way, BRI even, not only for China, but also I was at a meeting actually with one of the panelists is from Bangladesh, and he talked about the BRI. I'm not an expert on that, but from what I heard, he said, Bangladesh economic recovery post the pandemic has a lot to do with this BRI projects in that country.
Yes.
So when the investment is being met over there, and then our economy will for sure, recover and come back from the pandemic. So obviously BRI is very important. Yes, significant to Bangladesh, for example. There's one country.
It's a change in mindset. Like a few years ago in Pakistan, there was a motto: we don't want aid, we want trade.
Yes.
So the BRI is this. Like we don't need to give stipends to people. We actually want to give them something to strive for, opportunities. So I think that's where the vision that the CPC gradually implemented domestically, it's also making sense and resonating with developing countries that want a shift of policy, a shift of attitude. So let's hope that, whatever the successes of the CPC can also serve as a good example for countries that are still trying to improve the quality of lives of their people.
Yeah, but I don't know if you noticed this phenomenon of increasing skepticism over China's BRI initiative.
That's because you look at Western media.
Yeah.
That's all of us do that.
Right.
Yeah, we've. I'm not quite sure if it's just from Western media or some also from developing countries as well. Especially during this COVID pandemic, a lot of blame were placed on China, and also criticism over this BRI about a debt trap, right? And so, how?
I'll try.
Do you feel it unfair, or it's just?
I think it's about okay. Number one, that many developing countries are post-colonial. Their English language, they're influenced by English language coverage.
Right.
The information about China comes from English language sources, and this media has a monopoly over narratives. So a lot of times we pick up stories in our media that are directly from an American newspaper or a European newspaper or a British newspaper, So that narrative gets copy-pasted This is a problem. I'm not saying that whatever projects we have are 100% nothing, even if, you know, anything has flaws, but those flaws are being addressed. Overall, there's a consensus in developing countries, in Belt and Road countries, that the impact of these investments has been positive. There has been job creation, there has been stability. Post-pandemic recovery has improved because there's a basic infrastructure that never existed before the BRI that is now helping them recuperate. So the narrative is like we read on Twitter right now, like some of the tweets don't even make sense about the China-EU trade deal. It's deliberate as well. Partially it's because people don't have enough ground information, and partially it's because what we pick from developing countries and what they pick from outside is in English. So that media space is largely influenced by a certain narrative. And I think it's just a matter of time that more diverse voices will be heard. We live in a world with a silent majority.
We need this time, right?
And
we
also,
need time to understand each other.
You know, this is another angle. If you look at BRI, you know, for some people in the U.S., you know, they would say BRI is like, oh, the Chinese way of ruling the world. That's a challenge to Washington. You know, we need to stop that. We need to.
We need to rule the world.
They would be more than happy to see the demise of BRI. But the thing is, like, no, it's not like a geopolitical program to rule the world or to run the world. No, it's mostly investment and trade, because China, from its own experience, we know that, you know, more infrastructure, more investment in hospitals, in education will serve the interests of the people. Ultimately, the country will develop themselves
Healthy
gradually.
people, healthy growth.
Yeah, because in that sense, you know, everybody again benefits from that. You know, a Chinese company will benefit from the Chinese goods. You know, if there's, say, every country is prosperous, there's a big market, right? For the made in China products, they can easily find a market, right? For other countries, you know, as long as they strengthen this cooperation with the links with China through BRI, so their goods can find their way into the Chinese market. You know, the market is growing rapidly, is expected to be the largest very soon this year or the next in the world. So you know, it's like you know, both ways. It goes both ways.
Right.
So it's not. I think people would view China somehow based on their own experience.
Yes, yes, this is what
so that's why
agree.
we have such a conclusion.
You know, for
and fear.
many years, they have created this whole stream of academics, of philosophies, of ideologies were disseminated to talk about the need for hegemony, the need for one global leader, to justify themselves maybe as well. And now they can't imagine a world that would not be hegemonic. And I think this is what Asian countries, why CDAC, for example, the conversation of the dialogue on Asian civilizations. I mean, it's very important to revisit our own past and heritage, because we lived in a world where nobody needed to monopolize. Mutual existence, mutual respect, and of course some country can be more powerful than another, but a monopoly, a hegemony, is not a very Asian notion. It's not a very global South notion. It's one that I think is increasingly being questioned, and for them, they cannot imagine China doesn't want to be a hegemon. How? You know, isn't that the only aspiration a powerful country could have?
No, for China, the priority is really about the domestic issue, you know, like creation of jobs, economic development, you know, territorial integrity. It's about this country. It's the jobs like yet to be done. It's not about something, you know, beyond China, really.
People tend to draw some conclusion from their past experience. Maybe that's what they've experienced, hegemony.
So one angle, you know, to understand.
You don't need to impose, you know. Imparting is more powerful, more meaningful.
Yeah. Before hitting our last question, here is a reminder. We are live from Beijing. You're watching Chat Box. You can also join us by tweeting your thoughts at the moment. So last but not least, many have called 2020 the worst year ever. So do you expect things will get better in 2021?
I think it's individual experience, maybe. Yeah, for some people, they would say, I'm doing fine.
Right, I can sense some hesitance there.
Yeah, but in general, I would say, you know, the benchmark. For example, if you take a look at the loss of human lives, I would say probably one of the worst years. You know, so, and countries, from country to country, they also have different experience. They probably have different understanding of 2020. For example, New Zealand is doing a good job, right? For that country, people would say, yeah, it's tough, it's challenging, but we have done, we have hope. We have done a wonderful job over there. But for other countries, it's a different story. I guess it's up to individuals. It's up to individual countries too. And then, when they look back, of course, it's tough for every country, for every person. But it's really about how you weathered over, or sometimes failed, probably, the crisis over there.
What do you want to see most in the new year?
Full recovery of our life, probably.
Right.
Normal lives,
Just life.
Just
Right.
the lives. You go to work, you probably don't need a mask, you can meet your friends, have get together.
See your parents.
Yes, your parents, go to the movie theater, etc. So just conducting daily lives safe and sound, without concern.
Yeah.
That would be good, good to the country, to ourselves, and to the economy.
To human health.
Right.
And happiness.
Psychological also.
Psychological health.
Yeah.
I agree so much. Like it just depends on how everyone has a different experience. I
Right.
personally think, I know so many people who suffered a lot, and to say, oh, it wasn't that hard, it's so easy for me. But in the end, we are in a better position to deal with the biggest issue at hand. The vaccine is already rolling out. We're closer to the vaccine than ever before in every part of the
Enough
world.
lessons are already learned.
Yeah, we know how to treat COVID. In the beginning, people didn't even know how to treat COVID. It was so chaotic. So we are in a better position to deal with this. And I think this has resulted in a better, stronger resolve to work together for many countries.
Right.
So I am optimistic.
Right. I'm an optimistic as well. I think I would call 2020 the worst year I've ever seen, and things could only get better in the new year. So
That's a nice way to say it.
here in Beijing, we wish you a safe and healthy 2021. Happy New Year.
Happy
New Year.
Happy New Year. How many minutes was that? It was 55 minutes.
Already?
No, I'm joking.